Welcome on into the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. Going to be with you guys on Thursday, December 4th, the day after National Signing Day, the early signing period for the 2026 class. And it was a good one. It was a good day for Utah. Very good day for Utah. A lot of fun for Utah fans yesterday, and it culminated this morning with Salesi Moa putting ink to paper officially in the program, officially welcoming their newest addition to the program, to the class. So a lot of exciting things to dive into on this episode. Had a lot of fun yesterday doing the live stream during National Signing Day, to talk about some of the things that were going on behind the scenes, but also to break down Utah's 2026 recruiting class. So, didn't get to run through everybody, but we'll do that over the course of time. We'll, break down the class in a number of different ways. I think this is a pretty unique time today because obviously Utah putting the finishing touches on their signing class, but also, the Big 12 Conference announcing 2025 awards and honors, and Utah was very well represented on the awards and honors list. And I think that's such a unique thing to have both of these, events, signing day for the future and for 2026, but also recognizing what happened this past season and Utah doing, what they did this year. I think it's just kind of it sort of the two play hand in hand with one another. So that's what today's episode is going to be about, talking about the awards that Utah is bringing home this season, the honors that, a number of players earned this year, and how that helped Utah with their 2026 recruiting class, and how it will likely help them going into the offseason and transfer portal recruiting next month as well. So that's going to be the focus of this one. But to start, there's no other place to start than Utah officially flipping Salesi Moa from Tennessee. It was a wild couple days. So to start, I think it's important to go back and sort of rewind, where Utah was, how this all came to be, right? And while we do this, we'll go ahead and we'll watch film of Salesi Moa from his junior season. I haven't been able to find the senior film just yet, but we'll keep this running while we talk through Moa and him flipping to Utah. But I think again, it's important to keep in mind the perspective, right? So obviously, Salesi Moa was a big priority for Utah this cycle. He was the top prospect in the state and a legacy kid. Ben Moa, a legendary figure in Utah football history, given what he was able to do under Urban Meyer. And I know that this is a big point of pride for him, is finally having a legacy kid putting on the Utah uniform. And, in hearing from Salesi and some of the quotes that were shared in his decision to flip to Utah, you can tell that there's a lot of excitement and a lot of determination to build upon that Moa legacy with the program. And, given what Utah has now in Salesi, I think there's a really great opportunity that, Moa is going to be able to do exactly that. So, to start there, I think that is kind of the foundation of Utah's recruitment was the legacy factor. And, going back to the summer, it was Utah, it was Tennessee, Michigan, Washington, all of these programs were making Salesi a big priority, and it ultimately came down to Tennessee and Utah. And at the time, we remember that there was the infamous PowerPoint presentation that doomed the Utes. And we all remember that. But NIL was also a factor, and I think at the time, Tennessee's offer was quite strong. And for Salesi, the opportunity to play at a program like Tennessee, getting out of the state, those are things that I know he was interested in as well, right? Playing in the state, just like brothers have the last couple of years with Sione being at UConn and Ice being at Michigan State, there was interest in getting out of state, and that's for some kids that's a big deal. But again, I think I shouldn't say again. I need to stop saying again. But with Utah coaches, ultimately it came down to Tennessee and Utah, and he obviously committed to Tennessee at the time. But Utah coaches having the relationship that they have with Ben, and a lot of his teammates, Morgan Scalley, Lewis Powell. I shouldn't say teammates, but guys that know Ben really well, just maintained their communication, their relationship with him, and things started to get in motion about a month ago. Is when Utah started to make their move, and Celesti was at the Utah Kansas State game, and that was kind of a big moment. It wasn't really talked about at the time. Celesti was there as an unofficial visitor. He also took a visit to Michigan the week after to go to the game, Michigan and Ohio State. So again, like, let that sink in, right? Utah making a push for a player, a top 50 player in terms of the industry-wide composite. When you take in Rivals, On3, 24/7 Sports, ESPN, all of those, combine them all together, all of his ratings and rankings, and this is a top 50 player in the 2026 class, committed to an SEC program that was in the playoff last year. And here's Utah making a push for him while Michigan is bringing in their top targets for the game last week, right? And so this speaks to Celesti and how he's viewed as a college prospect. But anyways, Utah just continued to make their push, and over the last 4 days, it seemed like there was a chance that this could happen. I remember starting this, on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Monday, and just saying like, hey, there's something in the works here. I can't necessarily talk about who. I went on the podcast on Tuesday to preview signing day and also talked about it there, that there was a flip possibility for Utah in the works. And, I went to bed Tuesday night, 1 a.m., feeling like there was probably a 30% chance that Utah could pull this off. By the morning, that was about 40%. And then just with each and every update throughout Wednesday, the optimism, the confidence grew that Utah was going to be able to pull this off. And it hit the afternoon time, and it felt like it was a done deal. And then obviously Blair Angulo dropped the bomb like he does, and he's been all over Celesti's recruitment. He's developed a really strong relationship with Celesti, and he's the guy that's been plugged in on this the entire way. And once he dropped that crystal ball prediction, it was as good as done. So for Utah, this is a big win to flip Celesti, and it speaks to a couple of really important factors here. And I think it's important to start with the money factor and NIL being a thing. And this is, an interesting dynamic for Utah and college football in general. There was a tweet from Bud Elliott of the Cover 3 podcast and 24/7 Sports, where he talked about kind of highlighting the difference in terms of the talent distribution in college football. He broke down what the 24/7 Sports, they have their team rankings and team points, that's where these rankings are generated from. You have a team score, right? And he highlighted the difference between the first and 16th ranked program, or the first and 30th ranked program 5 years ago, being a difference of 80 points. And then this year, it's you're looking at teams 1 through 30 where there's a difference of I think it was actually 80 points, but this year it's like 50. It just basically the distribution of talent. I should just pull up the tweet because I'm butchering it, trying to paraphrase it all. but anyways, just the talent distribution speaks to NIL and how it's become an equalizer. So for Utah, this is absolutely one of those factors in Utah being able to flip Moa, is the NIL factor. And rev share is obviously the thing here. But, with Sione, so NIL being a thing, the legacy factor being another big draw for him and being able to do this in front of family and friends. But another underrated element was the success Utah had playing two-way players with Jackson Benny, Smith Snowden, Lander Barton. These guys sort of paving the way as for Utah with this two-way dynamic. And with Salesi, he's a dynamic receiver and defensive back capable of playing safety and nickel. He's good at playing outside in the slot on the offensive side of the ball. And to see what Utah was doing with Snowden, Benny, and Lander, I think was also a really important element, because I know Celesti wants to continue to be a two-way player, at the next level. So this is a great situation that all sort of culminated together over the last couple of days, with Utah being able to flip the number 46 ranked player in the 2026 class based on the composite. He is the number 2 highest rated commit in program history, behind only fellow 2026 signee Kelvin Obot, who is the number 1 highest rated player in program history now. And, another interesting fact is Texas Tech and Utah, the only 2 Big 12 programs to sign 2 top 50 composite players in the conference this year. So pretty big accomplishment. And, we can go back to the summertime and, pull receipts of summer freak out over Utah recruiting and concerns and worries. And I think at the end of the day, Utah was able to, capitalize not only on the success that they've had in years past, but also, what they've been able to do this season. And what they've been able to do this season has translated into a lot of hardware and awards and honors for the program today. Yeah, and so yeah, I think Utah's success going 10-2, and with what they were able to do offensively and defensively, it translated to a lot of hardware today for Utah. Spencer Fano earning Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year. He was far and away the best offensive lineman in the Big 12 this season. I think he allowed just 5 pressures all season long. He was dominant in the run game. He's been that guy for Utah each of the 3 seasons he's been a starter. A freshman All-American, an All-American All-Conference performer last year, and he will likely do the same again this year. He has lived up to the billing throughout his 3 years with the program. He's a first-round lock, and to have this sort of hardware, and for Caleb Lomu, his counterpart on the left side of the line, who also allowed 0 sacks on the year, being named a first-team all-conference offensive lineman, I think it says a lot, and it meant a lot in Utah's recruitment of Kelvin Obot. So the success this season, the success in previous years with Fano as well, and even before that, all of that has culminated in Utah being able to pitch Kelvin Obot on coming to Utah and maximizing his potential, his opportunities. And I think that's been really beneficial for the Utes as they've had to fend off, as they've had to beat out, Oregon, Michigan, and Nebraska, 3 programs that have also done a lot with offensive linemen, in recent history. But for Utah to make the most of this season with Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu earning the awards that they did, I absolutely think that played a part in Obot's decision to commit to Utah and remain, completely locked in with the program throughout the process. So, obviously, big shout outs to Fano and Lomu. Both of those guys are likely first-round draft picks this season, and it's going to be on guys like Kelvin Obot and Matali Benjamin to carry on the legacy moving forward. And I think that's a pretty exciting opportunity for them. In terms of other hardware for Utah and who's bringing home what, Devin Dampier named Offensive Newcomer of the Year after totaling over 2,900 total yards of offense, 29 touchdowns. I think more than anything, it was the confidence, the swagger, the leadership that he provided this team, and those fourth quarter moments, time and time again, delivering in crunch time. he was the guy in those moments for Utah. So to earn newcomer of the year as a quarterback for Utah, given what Utah's experience was in 2024, I think that's significant for the program moving forward. On the recruiting trail this year, they initially landed Mike Johnson Jr. out of Georgia, a similar dual threat quarterback to Dampier and to Bird Ficklin, and that's where it started. And then with the success they've had this year with Dampier and with Ficklin as well, Utah was able to make a pitch to Kane Archer and flip him from UCF. And now you've got two QBs in this class that you feel really kind of solidifies the depth in that room to withstand potential departures in the transfer portal. And Utah's positioned themselves really well with that quarterback room now. And it's, due in large part to the success that Dampier had in earning, this newcomer of the year and being a guy that earned third team all conference honors. It's kind of crazy that he only earned third team, but obviously you understand that, Texas Tech and Baylor and BYU, those teams are going to have guys that, have earned awards as well and earn honors. But I think for Dev to make the most of this season and to earn this honor, I think is a big, big deal for him. And it's going to help Utah moving forward. And then the other first team all conference member, John Henry Daly. And obviously it's super unfortunate that he wasn't able to finish the season, that he suffered his injury. I know that he just had his surgery. And by all accounts, there's a lot of optimism for him and the recovery path that he's going to be on. But he made the most of this season, finishing, as among the leaders in sacks and tackles for loss. He was the guy that came out of nowhere to really make a difference for Utah this season. And you look at the class this year and who Utah was able to bring in: Preston Pitts, PJ Taki, and then the clip of Fasiali on signing day yesterday. You look at that defensive line and the success that Henry had, or that Daly had, and you just like how it's going to translate to the future success with these guys coming in as potential edge rushers. So Utah's keeping that room pretty well stocked on the recruiting trail. And, again, to get back to the trenches and the offensive line, to keep Obot, locked in and for him to be the centerpiece of the future of the offensive line. Utah's been it's been really important for Utah to continue to build out the trenches, to add depth, in this class, to add pieces that can come in and contribute right away. Obot's going to be a day one type of guy for Utah, in my opinion. You've got Benjamin, who is likely going to be like Lomu, who's going to need a year to redshirt and get his body where it needs to be to handle the physicality of the collegiate level. But he's got a lot of elite qualities that you really like, especially with how Harding has proven his ability to develop and get the most out of his players. So for Utah to get those two and then to have Moses Sparks and Rowdy Pierce, you really feel good about the future of the offensive line as well. And then again, getting back to, some other things with this class, Utah finishing top 20, I shouldn't say top 20, top 30, top 40, in the team rankings with this. I think it's significant. And coming off a 5-7 season last year, there was a lot of concern about the program and its ability to recruit at a really high level. And I think what we need to understand is that Utah has been through this before. They've had struggles. They've learned how to compete. They've learned how to, recruit through the highs and lows. And, give this program a lot of respect, give the staff a lot of respect for, turning things in just a year. And now as we get to the next phase of the offseason where, with signing day coming to a close tomorrow, or I should say the early signing period coming to a close tomorrow, the next phase is roster retention and transfer portal recruiting. And when you have a 10-2 season like Utah has had, I think that's going to benefit Utah in terms of their ability to retain players, but also bring in some key pieces to help them bolster the 2026 roster. And when you look at the roster, there are a lot of young players. And for a a couple of positions. Utah is going to need some collegiate experience through the transfer portal to really kind of round out the outlook of the team going into next season. And it starts with the offensive line. Obviously, we're talking a lot about Fano and Lomu, but you're also losing, really big contributors and impact players in Jaron Kump, Tanoa Togiai, Michael Mokofisi. These are all guys that have earned honors throughout the year and have been recognized by Utah and the Big 12 time and time again. And so Utah potentially is going to have to replace all 5 linemen. Fortunately, Utah's done well to stockpile depth over the years, and they've got a lot of guys that are certainly chomping at the bit to step up into starting roles. But Utah's going to have to go into the portal and bring in, a couple of linemen that have experience just to have it in the room. And that's going to be a key element for Utah going into the transfer portal. There's going to be other positions that that Utah is going to have to look at as well. And I think tight end is going to be another position that Utah looks at. And with Dallin Bentley having the success that he had this year, I think he caught a lot of people by surprise. If you pay attention to the right people, a lot of people talked about him being a guy that could break out, even though it's been a breakout. He's been a breakout candidate. It feels like each of the last 2 seasons, he finally did it. And that's all that matters. He finally did it. He was finally fully healthy and was able to showcase what he's able to do. And unfortunately, he is a senior and he is going to have to move on from the program. I've heard that there's a chance that he could get a medical red shirt, but I don't think it's a very great chance. But I think Utah's going to go into the portal looking for a tight end to kind of come in and fill that spot that'll be vacated by Dallin Bentley. But, Bentley had a lot of success this year that's going to help Utah as they get into the portal to make pitches to players to say, hey, you can come in and you can fill this role where look at what we did with Bentley. Over 400 yards, a handful of touchdowns. He was such an important presence in the offense, not only as a pass catcher and producing in that manner, but being a run blocker and being a physical presence. That's what we need. That's what they're going to be able to do going into the transfer portal with the success that Bentley had. And then from there, I think it's really going to depend on what else shakes out with roster retention. And I think we'll start to see some dominoes fall, in the coming days on that front in terms of getting key pieces locked in for next year. Obviously, that all starts with Devin Dampier. And then, up next is probably Bird Ficklin. And as it stands right now, Thursday, December 4th, 2:08 p.m. as I'm recording this, I feel pretty optimistic that Utah is going to be able to bring back both Dampier and Bird. And considering what they accomplished this year, that's really exciting. From there, now that Utah is going to have those two potentially locked in, that's going to allow them to move on throughout the rest of the roster to bring back key guys, and then they'll have a much better idea of how to approach the transfer portal, and even some potential high school recruiting is some players are holding off until February to sign. That could open up some opportunities for Utah to pursue additional high school recruits as well. So a lot to shake out over the next couple of weeks in terms of getting a clear picture on the 2026 roster and what Utah is going to need. But as of right now, given what you did in 2025, the success that you had on both sides of the ball, I think it's a really exciting time for Utah as they move into the next class and recruiting 2027. There's a lot of talent in this next cycle, and you have a 10-2 year that usually parlays itself into greater success the following year. So it helped Utah this year, but it usually translates more so in the following recruiting cycle. So Utah will get going on that front here now that they've put ink to paper the last couple days on this year's class. They'll now turn the page to 2027, where it's all gas for Utah football. So I think I hope Utah fans enjoyed yesterday. I had a lot of fun doing the live early on in the day, answering some questions, and then doing another Twitter space later on at night to kind of run through some questions as well. Had a great time doing that. I want to say thank you to everybody that has supported the Utah Blockcast. It really does mean a lot to me. It's been really cool to hear the feedback from KSL that this continues to grow. I've always been I know that the Blockcast has been the podcast for a lot of people, but it's really cool to see it continue to grow beyond the people that I know and interact with on a pretty consistent basis. And so I just say thank you to everybody for making this so much fun for me. I've enjoyed doing what I'm doing. I love my job. I have the best job. It's really incredible for me to be able to do this. It's not lost on me, and it's why I continue to bust my butt as much as I do. So I want to finish on that note, and really excited for next year and what's to come. With what we're doing with the Blockcast, but then just in general covering Utah sports. So I appreciate everybody. That'll do it for me. I'm going to be recording another episode to go more in depth on basketball and Alex Jensen, and getting into the meat of his first year at the helm of Utah basketball. We've got a number of games now to kind of assess this team and the trajectory that it's on. So I'm going to welcome on Andrew Crowley, aka Running Hoops pod, and to bring him on, and we're going to talk all things Running Utes hoops on an episode that we'll drop later tonight. So looking forward to that as well. But I'll go ahead. I'll put a bow on this one. I'll press end record, and we'll be off and running later tonight to talk more hoops.